You wake up to the thick, toxic, yellow sulfur fog of London in November 1858, and before you even open your eyes, the smell reaches you. The overwhelming, choke-inducing stench of raw sewage rising from the stagnant Thames, a physical presence known as the Great Stink that coats the back of your throat with a bitter, metallic taste while outside your damp basement window, the relentless, heavy clatter of iron-shod horse hooves on wet cobblestones, and the screaming of street vendors pierce through the freezing morning air as a half-starved, mangy street dog scrounges through a pile of rotting garbage right outside your door, and your chest burns with a deep, persistent cough that makes your ribs ache with every breath because a strange, dark phlegm has been rising in your throat for weeks, and you know you cannot afford to be sick in this city where the winter cold is settling into your very bones. But you also know that in this sprawling, chaotic metropolis, the boundaries between a cure and a poison are completely invisible, and this world does not care if you survive. The calendar on the wall reads 1858, and you are trapped in the suffocating, unyielding machinery of Victorian London, a city boasting unparalleled imperial wealth, yet harboring over 2 million people crammed into lethal squalor, where your survival depends entirely on your position as a low-wage manual laborer in a social hierarchy so rigid that the top 1% controls over 80% of the land, a world where the law offers you absolutely no protection against starvation, and your freedom is entirely conditional upon your ability to work every single day without failing, meaning that your social status was inherited from the grinding poverty of your parents and cannot be escaped through sheer will, a systemic reality where the powerful dictate your movements and the state views your illness not as a misfortune to be treated, but as a moral failure to be managed or ignored, forcing you to realize that you did not choose this life. It chose you. If your cough gets worse and you decide to seek medical help on the crowded streets of London, you step straight into a brutal, unregulated marketplace rather than a clean healthcare system, because on the exact same afternoon and the exact same street corner, you're forced to choose between a licensed physician who charges astronomical fees only the rich can pay, a hospital surgeon who treats patients like ticketed entertainment, an apothecary mixing random chemicals, a local midwife, or a street quack selling bottled-colored liquids from a wooden cart on a strict, no-cure, no-pay marketing basis, all of them competing aggressively for your remaining pennies, because in 1858, medicine is not a compassionate science, but a cutthroat market where healers are primarily salesmen who rely on spectacular claims to survive financially. The newly passed Medical Act of 1858 claims to reform this chaos by creating the General Medical Council, but the ugly truth behind the politics is that this law does not actually ban the street quacks or unregulated herbalists. It was heavily lobbied for by elite qualified doctors who were losing massive corporate income to cheaper competition, wanting an official register merely to signal their luxury status to wealthy patients while leaving you and the rest of the working class at the absolute mercy of cheap, hazardous, and chemical-heavy street medicine that promises to cure consumption, gout, and nervous exhaustion but delivers nothing but slow, invisible poisoning. Your daily labor begins long before the sun rises, matching the unforgiving, mechanical rhythm of the industrial city rather than the natural agricultural seasons, as you drag your aching, feverish body to the docks, the coal yards, or the textile mills at 5 o'clock in the morning to work a brutal 14-hour shift surrounded by primitive, dangerous machinery that lacks any basic safety guards, forcing you to work through freezing rain outdoors or damp, lint-choked indoor air that fills your lungs with black coal dust and cotton grease, while the weather acts as an aggressive antagonist, freezing your joints in the winter and suffocating you in the summer, an unyielding year-round physical degradation that will leave its permanent, structural mark on your bones for future archaeologists to find in mass graves, showing fractured vertebrae, eroded joint sockets from repetitive stress, and chronic jaw abscesses. The clear, undeniable physical evidence of a raw survival labor that drains the vital life from your body week by week, a horrific reality completely distinct from any romanticized, beautiful ideal of heroic Victorian productivity. The food that keeps your heart beating through this labor is a monotonous, toxic cycle of severe nutritional deficiency, consisting almost entirely of a scraping of watery oatmeal porridge in the morning and a loaf of cheap white bread that has been heavily adulterated with alum, plaster of Paris, and poisonous chalk by unscrupulous bakers to make the loaf look white, clean, and deceptively heavy. A basic diet completely restricted by your meager wages while strict poaching laws, heavy taxation, and class-based pricing keep fresh meat, clean milk, and green vegetables far out of your family's reach, making your daily life an endless, exhausting confrontation with chronic hunger that diminishes your physical stature, hollows your cheeks, and leaves your mind in a constant state of psychological fatigue, rendering you highly vulnerable to the next cycle of poor harvests when the price of grain spikes and the threat of complete starvation forces families to choose between dying in the dark or entering the terrifying, identity-stripping gates of the local parish workhouse. If the hunger does not break you, the water you use to wash down your dry, chemical-adulterated crust of bread certainly will, drawn directly from a communal iron street pump that taps into a shallow, contaminated water table fed by nearby overflowing cesspools, raw industrial runoff, and shallow, overcrowded churchyard graves, making every single sip a lethal gamble with invisible waterborne threats like dysentery, typhus, and the terrifying, recurring outbreaks of Asiatic cholera that can dehydrate and liquefy a human body from the inside out within 12 hours, leaving your skin blue and your blood thick as tar, an environment where child mortality statistics reveal that 1 out of every 3 children born in the London slums dies before their 5th birthday, and the average life expectancy for a working-class labor drops below 25 years. A devastating reality managed by an absolute vacuum of genuine medical knowledge, where elite doctors still loudly debate whether diseases are spread by bad morals, divine wrath, or foul odors called miasma, leaving you entirely defenseless against the invisible bacterial contagions breeding rapidly in your crowded, unventilated lodgings. The everyday items inside your home hold hidden, lethal poisons that strike your family without warning, such as the cheap, brilliant green wallpaper lining your damp bedroom wall, which gets its vibrant hue from copper arsenite, a volatile compound that flakes off into an invisible, toxic dust that you breathe in every night while you sleep, causing your stomach to cramp violently, your skin to erupt in painful scabs, your hair to fall out in clumps, and your mind to suffer from terrifying, vivid hallucinations, a visceral contrast to the wealthy upper classes who can easily afford non-toxic, expensive materials while the poor are left to suffer from chronic arsenic poisoning hidden in plain sight, a physical torment that the neighborhood parish priest confidently attributes from the pulpit to divine judgment for your secret sins, laziness, or a lack of religious devotion, demonstrating how even the basic fabrics, walls, and foods of your home are actively weaponized against you by the economics of poverty. If your condition worsens to the point of trauma and you end up on an operating table at a London teaching hospital, you enter a literal theater built like a stadium with steeply raked wooden benches rising toward the ceiling, where medical students and members of the public who paid for their seats are packed in shoulder to shoulder to watch your agony as entertainment, and where legendary surgeons like Robert Liston turn to the gallery with a pocket watch and shout, "Time me, gentlemen." Before using a heavy bone saw to amputate a leg in under 30 seconds, a terrifying speed that is a genuine survival strategy, because in this era before anesthesia or antisepsis, every second spent on the table increases your risk of dying from pure surgical shock or massive blood loss. What the textbooks conveniently omit is that between these chaotic amputations, surgeons move from one bleeding patient to the next without washing their hands, wiping their blood-stained instruments on their grease-hardened aprons, or holding the bloody scalpel in their teeth while changing tools, operating on wooden tables blackened with decades of dried, infected blood that is viewed as proof of experience rather than a lethal hygiene problem, creating a hospital environment so dangerous and rife with gangrene that the wealthy absolutely refuse to enter them, paying surgeons massive fees to operate on their own domestic dining tables cleared of breakfast, while the hospital wards are so infested with vermin that they employ dedicated hospital bug catchers who are paid higher wages than the actual junior medical staff. Music. If you are a working mother trying to survive this industrial landscape, The weight is doubled and entirely invisible, for the law dictates under the doctrine of coverture that your legal identity is completely merged with your husband's upon marriage, leaving you with no right to own property, no legal control over your own hard-earned wages, and no protection against domestic violence, forcing you into a relentless routine of exhausting domestic labor, washing heavy clothes in toxic lye, maintaining a cellar room in the dark, and stretching pennies for food, while facing the constant, terrifying gamble of childbirth in a filthy room with no medical assistance, where childbed fever kills thousands of young mothers every year. If your infant cries from hunger while you must leave for a 12-hour factory shift, the medical market offers you a cheap, over-the-counter solution called Godfrey's Cordial, marketed heavily as the mother's friend, which is a sweet syrup packed with laudanum, a highly addictive tincture of opium that keeps the baby completely unconscious, quiet, and effortless to manage for hours. A brutal economic reality where pediatric historians document thousands of silent infant deaths from chronic opium poisoning, recorded by coroners as simple failure to thrive because the market took its time deciding whether a poor baby's life was worth regulating. For your own adult anxieties or physical pain, doctors diagnose you with hysteria, a manufactured female disorder supposedly caused by a malfunctioning, wandering womb, and prescribe toxic tonics containing iron, heavy alcohol, and mercury compounds, delivered through invasive, dangerous specialist instruments like the Marvel Whirling Spray douche, which actively disrupts your body's natural defenses and increases lethal infections while completely ignoring the obvious reality that women living in extreme poverty, facing starvation and domestic violence, have every logical, structural reason to be distressed that has absolutely nothing to do with their reproductive anatomy. The deception of the era extends even into the beauty standards of the high street, where a pale, ghost-like complexion is not merely aesthetic but a vital signal of high social class, virtue, and leisure, communicating that you do not have to perform backbreaking outdoor manual labor in the sun, driving women of all classes to purchase arsenic complexion wafers from high street pharmacists to delicately nibble on a daily basis, ignoring the known lethality of the chemical for the sake of fashion, leading to internal organ failure, scaly skin growths called keratosis, and slow death, while middle-class women privately mix their own toxic cosmetics at home using secret recipes containing lead, arsenic, and mercury, ensuring that the true scale of domestic cosmetic poisoning remains completely uncounted and hidden in female-coded spaces where no male historian or official recorder ever enters. The world should collapse under the weight of this institutionalized, profitable cruelty, yet it remains standing because the ordinary people trapped within its machinery possess an incredible, quiet, and collective resilience, adapting to the cold, the contamination, and the constant threat of medical execution by lowering their expectations of life until the simple act of surviving another winter becomes a profound victory of the human spirit, finding small moments of hope in a shared loaf of bread, a successful week of wages, or a child surviving another year of factory work, a history that completely rejects any romanticized, beautiful narrative of Victorian elegance and reveals that they survived because they adapted to cruelty, choosing every single day to keep breathing and to keep their humanity alive in a world built to exploit them. So if this raw, unfiltered journey into the dark, bloody medical realities of London 1858 gave you a perspective you did not have before, hit the subscribe button now to join us every week as we uncover the vital, hidden history that the textbooks leave out, and tell us in the comments below, how would you have found the strength to survive this world?